Hi guys, and welcome back to class. Today, we are going to brainstorm some effects that the war has had on individuals based on what we've read so far in all of our texts that we've studied. So I want you guys to think back. Based on what we've read, what have been some of the effects of war on individuals? Comment below in the Schoology discussion board. Now looking at our physiological effects of war, I want us to look at our focusing question task for this answer. What are the psychological effects of war? And for our content framing question, what's happening in chapter 10? So at this point, everyone should have read up to chapter 10 in order to be able to complete this lesson. Our craft question in our examine stage says, why is using broad categories to develop a thesis statement important? What do you already know about writing a thesis statement? I want you to answer this question in Schoology. What is a thesis statement? Why do we use them? There are many ways to write a thesis statement, guys. To organize an essay. For your end of module task that we're going to be working on over the next few days, you will focus on writing a thesis statement that communicates the category and the overarching idea of the essay. For example, if our idea is trench warfare, what would be an overarching idea for trench warfare? Or in other words, what do we want our reader to know about trench warfare? So an example would be a topic sentence. This could be a form of a thesis statement. This thesis statement would explain the main idea and the supporting details that you're going to talk about more elaborately in your following paragraphs. It could explain the specifics of what the essay will talk about or develop, or it would explain exactly what information will be examined or talked about in the essay as follows. If you're going to do this type of thesis statement, you would want to tell your reader what the topic is and some key details about that or its main idea. If you were going to do thesis statement number 2, setting the stage, you might explain the causes of trenches and their effect on soldiers. And you would set that stage up for us to understand that. Or you would provide many details. But you would want to make sure that you're not including too many details about the category so that you can go forward and talk more briefly about them in the subsequent paragraphs. Or you would explain the effects of trench warfare on soldiers, just an overarching idea. So for example, you might say, trench warfare is a horrible, now I'll kind of write it here. So if I wanted to set the stage for trench warfare, I might say something like, trench warfare is a place full of terror and dismay. Based on our reading, much has been learned about trench warfare and its effects on individuals in the war, i.e. soldiers, or humanity, or civilians. Trench warfare is a dangerous place, full of loss, death, illness, and affects many involved. So
Ms.
this would be an
Tyner, is it possible
example
to
of a
leave?
thesis statement. Another example of a thesis statement would be a too big thesis statement. This thesis statement would explain an overarching idea, which is trench warfare, and that it killed many soldiers. So basically, you would be talking about how trench warfare killed many soldiers, but there were many reasons why they were dying, due to ammunition, due to illnesses, due to lack of food, because we know that Cat was always looking for food for them, so they could have been starving. So we know that there were many reasons why trench warfare killed some soldiers. So for that type of thesis statement, you might write something like, trench warfare killed many. There were many reasons for death and loss. Many died due to lack of food, bombardments, illnesses, and illnesses. Okay? So this would be a thesis statement. Okay? I'm going to remove this real quick so we can have this conversation. So this would be an example of a too big thesis statement. You're basically only going to talk about one aspect of trench warfare. And in this case, you're going to be talking about the death that took place due to trench warfare. But we know there were many reasons for death, not just the ammunition or the bombs. They were dying because of lack of food, because of illnesses, because of lack of medical care that was created at that time. So there could be many reasons, and you would go into depth of those reasons within your paragraphs that are following. Or another example of a thesis statement would be defines the significance of category. This thesis statement is going to be quite detailed. It provides a context for trench warfare and how it affects on soldiers and the society. So this sentence may be something like this one, but it's going to have more detail about how it affected the soldiers, how it affected society. And then in your paragraphs, you would go into more examples of how it affected individual soldiers and individual society. So now let's look at pages 239 through 244. The word resignation means to agree without much challenge or opposition. I want you to read this section, and I want you to annotate it for the effects of war that have taken place. So what are the effects of war that have taken place in pages 239 and 244? And then answer a series of questions that I will have inside of Schoology. How does Paul describe the feeling of fear? What are some different ways that Paul reacts because of fear? And how do Paul and Albert's reactions to their injuries compare? In other words, how does Paul react to being hurt, and how does Albert react to being hurt? Then when you're reading, I want you to notate What physical effects have taken place due to the war? And what psychological effects have taken place to the characters due to the war? Then we are going to take out our handout 18A and 18B and answer the question of, how does the poem you have read for your fluent reading help build your understanding of the psychological effects of war? To end this lesson, our content framing question is asking you to organize your thoughts of what's happening in Chapter 10. For our exit ticket, how does Crop's response to his injuries show psychological effects of the war? For homework tonight, I want you guys to complete handout 27A Fluency and read pages 244 of All Quiet on the Western Front, annotating for the development of Paul's perspective about the future. So in other words, how does he feel about the future? And answer the question in Schoology or in your response journal. Also, how does the hospital show truth about war? That's going to be it for today's lesson. If you guys have any questions or concerns or need anything, please come to office hours. They're every day, Monday through Friday, from 11:22 to 12:06. Please be aware that there are certain dates on Fridays where I will not be available due to the new district guidelines. The first date is December 4th, and I will not be available on Schoology for any questions. If you need help, please try to come Thursday, or I can help you on Monday. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.